Hi, her name is Emma Kay, and she is a first-time author of a soon-to-be-published book, The Terrible Truth About the Truth, the story of a Rwandan Tutsi genocide survivor, when home doesn't feel like home, and when abroad feels far from home.
I hope you have been listening to my audios, even though they are not necessarily part of my book, so that when my book comes out, you know more about me and what I stand for. It is true that not much of what I stand for was covered in my book, but you will notice that all my stories turn around my book's moral to never, ever take anything for granted.
Certainly, as Emma just said, many stories weren't covered in her book for a number of reasons, like this shocking story of Rusesabagina, the author of the Hollywood movie Hotel Rwanda. I believe everyone now knows about Rusesabagina's trip to Burundi that turned into a nightmare. In fact, those who have been watching Mr. Rusesabagina's disturbing trial know what we mean when we say that many people tend to take things for granted. Anyway, what happened to Rusesabagina? For those who didn't follow the news, in August 2020, Rusesabagina, a U.S. permanent resident and Belgian citizen, boarded a plane from Texas, USA, thinking he was headed to Burundi via Dubai. Long story short, a certain Mike, an official of the Rwandan Investigation Bureau, known as RIB, arranged a kidnapping plan with Rusesabagina's so-called friend, Bishop Constantin. The bishop managed to get Rusesabagina to a Rwandan paid private jet.
Easy to understand for those who listened to my testimony in my YouTube audio of February 17, 2021, during Kizito Mihigo's memorial, another victim of President Kagame, of course. In that testimony, I talked about how Bertin Murera, the best friend of my very own brother, Ben Rutabana, was given a mission to kill Ben. Thank God, Murera decided to die with my brother instead of killing him.
Ben's blessing that day is not a usual thing in Rwanda, and it wasn't given to Rusesabagina. As Bishop Constantin said it himself on March 5th of 2021, during Rusesabagina's trial, the private jet was carrying him and Rusesabagina as the only passengers, and it was paid for by the Rwandan government. The other human beings on board were of course the pilots and the flight attendants, obviously all RIB's employees, serving food and drinks to the only two passengers on board.
Doesn't that explain why Rusesabagina fell asleep after eating and drinking what he was served, when his so-called friend stayed awake until Kigali airport? Only God knows what the flight attendants put in Rusesabagina's food and drinks. Well, I have nothing much to say, since Rusesabagina has been fighting with RIB in court. But can you believe that Bishop Constantin Niwemungeri, Rusesabagina's kidnapper, was chosen by Rusesabagina's prosecutors and approved by his judge to be the witness in Rusesabagina's case? It's unbelievable. I know I sound like I am dramatizing, but when I hear Rusesabagina talking about his trials here and there, it feels like since Hotel Rwanda received the world's attention and made it to Hollywood, the government of Rwanda fully committed to depleting Rusesabagina's savings by dragging him into everlasting trials and having him pay outrageous legal fees.
Just remember, Rusesabagina is a U.S. permanent resident and a Belgian citizen who is kidnapped by the Rwandan government and who now has no hope and no home other than Mageragere prison. If you are a social influencer or a celebrity of some kind, I hope that when you hear Rusesabagina's story, you remember to never, ever take anything for granted. Thank you, and don't forget to subscribe to Emma's YouTube channel so that you don't miss out on her upcoming stories. See you next time!